I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to start right away, all right? So not a lot of time. But science and faith are two things that are very important to me as both a scientist and as a Christian. So this is a very important topic. The title of the talk kind of is composed of two statements. So the first statement is science is fact, and the second one is faith is just belief. And so I'm going to look at both of those statements. I don't really agree with either one, all right? And I'll kind of tell you why. So I'm going to start with the first one, science is fact. So I want to start with this definition of science is an intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. I do like the definition because it talks about a systematic study, and it talks about it emphasizes observation and experiment, which I think are two essential components to the scientific process. And I think it's also important to note that this science focuses on the physical and natural world, okay? It has nothing to do with the supernatural, which we'll talk about in my second point. So basically, we as scientists are using observation and experiment to try and describe the world around us as best we can. I think this is a good practical definition of what science is. The perception for most people is that scientists are working to compile this giant book of facts and theories, all right, that we can then slam on the table as absolute truth. But it is this type of opinion that leads to statements like science is fact. But hopefully I can convince you that science is more than facts, all right? But instead that science is composed of a carefully measured set of observations that form the evidence for all of our scientific theories and ideas. All right, so let me give you an example. So my 7-year-old son, Aaron, loves facts, and he loves fact books, all right? And if you look at these facts, a lot of them are derived from science, okay? And so one of the facts that we find particularly cool, all right, is the fact that a hummingbird, the heart of a hummingbird beats 1,260 times per minute, okay? So the average human, somewhere between 80 and 120 beats per minute, okay? So a hummingbird heart beats 10 times faster than a human heart, which is pretty amazing. All right, I think that's pretty cool. We find that cool. All right, so being a scientist, I decided let's dig a little deeper. Where does this fact come from? And there was a biologist at the University of Michigan who had 40 hummingbirds of 7 different species, and for 17 months he studied the metabolism of these hummingbirds. So what he did is he had a little flannel jacket with electrodes in it that measured their heart rate, their breathing rate, and something else. I'm trying to forget now. Let me look. And their temperature, the body temperature. Okay? And in the end, what he found was that over a range of ambient temperatures and activity levels, the heartbeat of a hummingbird can vary from 48 beats per minute all the way up to 1,200 beats per minute. Okay? And it's from this study, all right, that we get this scientific fact that we found in the fact book. All right, so this biologist was not concerned about establishing a new fact for the science fact book. That was not his goal. All right, his goal was to better understand hummingbirds. He wanted to gain a firmer grasp on the reality around him. And I think that this example gets down to the very essence of what science is. That we really, as scientists, just want to know how things work. All right, John Lennox, a Christian mathematician, says it very nicely. He says, the essence of true science is a willingness to follow the empirical evidence wherever it leads. That idea of wherever it leads is a bit of a loaded statement, okay, which I unfortunately don't have time to go into, all right, but there are pitfalls along the way that we can struggle with, okay? All right, so that's my first. So hopefully that gives you a picture of what science is. So let's talk about the second point, all right? So the second point, faith is just belief. All right, again, I want to start with a definition, all right? So a definition for faith would be a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Of course, this is a very broad definition of faith, all right, which doesn't apply just to religion, but can apply to anything, like the chair that you're sitting in. You may not realize, but right before you sat down, you unconsciously placed your faith in that chair, that it would keep you from falling on the floor, right? Okay? So let me ask you, why did you place your faith in that chair? Okay? Well, maybe you were here last week and you sat in the same chair and it held you up. Like, okay, well, it worked last week, so it'll work this week. Or you came in, other people were sitting down, right? Well, okay, they're sitting down, so the chair probably will hold me as well, all right? Or maybe you believe in the leadership of the church, Lex and Ryan. They've never put faulty chairs in this church. I'm going to have faith in them, so I'm going to sit down, all right? Whatever it was, there was some sort of evidence that you used, some observation that you made, and that's why you placed your faith in the chair. Okay? A bit of a silly example, but can we take that same logic about placing a faith in a chair and take that in placing faith in God? I believe that we can. I think we can use a similar logic to talking about placing our faith in God. Of course, the overwhelming popular opinion does not agree with this. Right? Many atheists argue that faith in God is a blind faith, okay, a faith without evidence. All right, and that viewpoint is summed up in a quote by Michael Shermer, okay, founder of the Skeptic Society in the U.S. All right, and he says, the point of faith is to believe regardless of the evidence, which is the antithesis of science. So he's instantly putting science and faith at opposition to each other. Okay, of course, my own viewpoint, which I've said already, does not align with that personal experience, and many of the viewpoints of other scientists throughout history. Francis Collins, Francis Bacon, Kepler, Pascal, Faraday, the list goes on and on and on of scientists who believe that you can have faith and study science. All right, so then surely the question in your mind now is, well, Steve, what is your evidence? Well, if you're here last week, you heard Lex give a great talk about all the evidences from nature. Okay, he talked about the fine-tuning of the universe, how finely tuned everything is. He talked about how the creation of the universe came through the Big Bang, all right, which is very similar to the Genesis 1 story, and that the laws of nature have the regularity which even allow the study of science. Right? All of these things point towards intelligent design, and they point towards a creator. All right, so my study of science has actually reinforced my faith in God. For me, the study of physics gives me a glimpse into God's amazing, well-ordered handiwork. And I think that sentiment is echoed very nicely in Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. All right, so that there's very clear, in my mind, scientific evidence. Of course, in addition to that, there's also personal experiences I would credit as evidence for my belief in Jesus Christ. There are specific events and instances in my life where I've experienced the love and grace of Christ that form the foundational evidence for the faith that I have. And I'm sure for all the Christians out there, you would agree there are also events in your life that you would count as evidence towards your belief in Jesus Christ. All right, so hopefully that's given you a better understanding of what science is and how faith and science can actually be compatible ideologies. I could talk a long time about this, but again, there's a time limit. So let me just leave you with two concluding remarks, okay, things that I think are important to remember. So first of all, I think it's important to remember that statements by scientists are not necessarily statements of science, okay? I'm a scientist. Everything I've said here is not necessarily a statement of science. Like I said, I've done a lot of that up here now, expressing my personal viewpoint. Okay, so I think that's point number one. Point number two, science does not have all the answers. Okay, I think someone like Richard Dawkins, all right, who's a naturalist, an atheist, would argue that science just needs more time to find all the answers. Okay, we just need more time. All right, but I'm pretty sure there will always be unanswered questions in science, like what is consciousness? All right, science can't touch that. All right, what happened before the Big Bang? All right, there's no way to measure that scientifically. I think there are questions that will never be answered scientifically. All right, so let me conclude with one last quote. This is from John Polkinghorne, who's a physicist, and I think it highlights some of the points I've been trying to make. No one has ever seen a quark, and we believe that no one ever will. They are so tightly bound to each other inside the protons and neutrons that nothing can make them break out on their own. So why then do I believe in these invisible quarks? In summary, it's because quarks make sense of a lot of direct physical evidence. I wish to engage in a similar strategy with regard to the unseen reality of God. All right, that's what I have to say. Thank you for your time. I'll be around after the service if you have any questions.